Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates painted their nails and talked about boys, she spent weekends at the shooting range with her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who taught her everything about firearms. By age 16, she could hit a target at 300 yards with iron sights, a skill that would later save her life and the lives of countless others. The decision to join the military came naturally to Sarah. Her family had a long tradition of service, with fathers, uncles, and grandfathers who had fought in every major conflict since World War II. When she walked into the Army recruitment office on her 18th birthday, the recruiter initially tried to steer her toward administrative roles. Sarah politely declined and insisted on infantry training. Basic training at Fort Benning proved challenging, not because of the physical demands, but because of the attitudes she encountered. Many of her male counterparts doubted her abilities, viewing her as a liability rather than an asset. Sarah never complained or argued back. Instead, she let her performance speak for itself. During marksmanship training, she consistently scored perfect marks, often outperforming seasoned shooters. Her drill sergeants quickly recognized her exceptional talent and recommended her for advanced sniper training. The sniper school was even more demanding than basic training. Out of 40 candidates who started the program, only 12 would graduate. The physical requirements were brutal, but the mental challenges proved even harder. Students had to remain perfectly still for hours, control their breathing and heartbeat, and make split-second calculations involving wind speed, distance, and trajectory. Sarah excelled in every aspect of the training. After graduating as the top student in her class, Sarah received orders to deploy to Afghanistan with the 75th Ranger Regiment. She would be the first female sniper attached to this elite unit, a fact that made some commanders nervous. The Rangers had a reputation for being the best of the best, and adding a woman to their ranks was considered experimental at the time. Her new team leader, Sergeant First Class Mike Rodriguez, was initially skeptical about having a female sniper on his team. He had seen too many good soldiers die in combat and worried that Sarah might become a distraction or, worse, a liability during critical missions. However, his doubts began to fade during pre-deployment training exercises. During one particularly challenging exercise in the California desert, Sarah demonstrated her abilities in a way that silenced all critics. The scenario involved a hostage rescue mission where enemy combatants held American civilians in a remote compound. Sarah positioned herself on a ridge 800 meters from the target building, far beyond the range most soldiers could effectively engage targets. As the exercise began, Sarah methodically eliminated 6 hostile targets in rapid succession, each shot perfectly placed to ensure immediate neutralization without risking civilian casualties. Her accuracy and speed were so impressive that the exercise controllers initially thought the simulation equipment was malfunctioning. When they realized what had happened, word of her performance quickly spread throughout the base. The deployment to Afghanistan came in the spring of 2010, during some of the heaviest fighting of the war. Sarah's unit was stationed at a forward operating base in Helmand Province, an area known for intense Taliban activity. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving, with rocky mountains, deep valleys, and scattered villages where determining friend from foe required constant vigilance. Sarah's first month in country was relatively quiet, with her team conducting routine patrols and reconnaissance missions. She quickly adapted to the environment, learning to read the terrain and identify potential threat positions. Her fellow Rangers began to respect her professionalism and skill, though some still harbored doubts about how she would perform under actual combat conditions. The team's first major engagement came during a patrol in a remote valley known for Taliban smuggling routes. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target, a Taliban commander responsible for numerous attacks on coalition forces, was meeting with local fighters in a village at the valley's end. Sarah's team was tasked with conducting surveillance and calling in airstrikes if the opportunity presented itself. As they approached the target area, Sarah established an overwatch position on a hillside that provided clear views of the village below. Through her scope, she could see armed men moving between buildings, but identifying the specific target proved difficult due to the distance and similar clothing worn by the fighters. The team waited patiently for several hours, gathering intelligence and photographing the activities below. The situation changed dramatically when a convoy of Afghan National Army soldiers entered the valley, apparently unaware of the Taliban presence. Sarah watched through her scope as Taliban fighters began positioning themselves for an ambush. The convoy was walking directly into a trap, and there was no way to warn them without revealing the Ranger team's position. Sarah's team leader faced a difficult decision. Their mission was reconnaissance, not direct engagement, but they could not stand by and watch friendly forces be massacred. He quickly radioed their situation to headquarters while Sarah continued monitoring the developing situation through her scope. The Taliban fighters were well positioned and heavily armed, with at least 15 combatants visible from her position. The response from headquarters was immediate and clear: engage and protect the friendly convoy at all costs. Sarah's team began moving to better positions while she remained in overwatch, ready to provide sniper support. The convoy was still several minutes away from the kill zone, giving the Rangers time to prepare their attack. As Sarah settled into her shooting position, she felt the familiar calm that came with intense focus. Her breathing slowed, her heartbeat steadied, and the world around her seemed to narrow to just her rifle, and the targets below. She had trained for this moment countless times, but knowing that real lives hung in the balance added weight to every movement and decision. The Taliban fighters had no idea they were being watched. They moved confidently through their positions, believing they held all the advantages in the coming engagement. Sarah methodically identified each threat, noting their positions, weapons, and likely escape routes. Her training had taught her to think several moves ahead, anticipating how targets would react once the shooting started. Through her radio, Sarah heard her team leader coordinating with the other Rangers and updating headquarters on their tactical situation. The convoy was now less than 2 minutes from entering the ambush zone, and the Taliban fighters were making final preparations for their attack. Sarah knew that in moments she would have to prove that all her training and preparation had been worth it. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Afghan valley as Sarah adjusted her scope for the final time. The Taliban fighters below had no idea death was watching them from 800 meters away. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger guard, not yet touching the trigger itself as she had been trained. Every breath was controlled, every movement calculated and precise. Through her earpiece, Sarah heard Sergeant Rodriguez giving final instructions to the team. The Afghan convoy would enter the kill zone in 90 seconds, and the Taliban ambush would begin shortly after. The plan was simple but dangerous. Sarah would engage the Taliban fighters from her elevated position, while the rest of her team moved to flank the enemy positions from the east. Sarah identified her priority targets. Through the powerful scope mounted on her rifle, the Taliban had positioned a machine gun team behind a stone wall that would devastate the convoy once they opened fire. 2 fighters manned the weapon, with additional ammunition bearers positioned nearby. Taking out this crew would be her first objective, as it posed the greatest threat to the friendly forces below. Her radio crackled softly as Rodriguez confirmed the convoy's position. They were now 60 seconds from entering the ambush zone. Sarah could see the dust cloud kicked up by their vehicles in the distance, and she knew the Taliban fighters could see it too. Several enemy combatants were making last-minute adjustments to their positions, checking weapons and preparing for what they believed would be an easy victory. The thermal signature through Sarah's scope showed her exactly where each Taliban fighter was positioned, even those partially concealed behind cover. Her rifle was a precision instrument, capable of delivering devastating accuracy at extreme ranges. She had practiced with this exact weapon system for months, learning its characteristics and capabilities until operating it became as natural as breathing. 30 seconds remained before the convoy entered the danger area. Sarah selected her first target, the machine gunner who posed the greatest immediate threat. She calculated the wind speed, adjusted for the slight upward angle of her shot, and controlled her breathing to the precise rhythm she had practiced thousands of times. Her heart rate slowed as she entered the focused state that all snipers must achieve for accurate shooting. Rodriguez's voice came through her earpiece one final time before the engagement began. The convoy was 20 seconds from the kill zone, and the Taliban fighters were raising their weapons in preparation for the ambush. Sarah placed her finger on the trigger and began the smooth, steady pressure that would send the first round downrange. The shot broke cleanly, and Sarah immediately began cycling the bolt to chamber another round. Through her scope, she watched the Taliban machine gunner collapse, his weapon suddenly silent. The other fighters initially seemed confused. unsure where the shot had come from or even if their comrade had been hit by enemy fire. Sarah's second shot eliminated the assistant gunner before he could take over the machine gun. The remaining Taliban fighters now realized they were under attack, but they still had not identified the source of the incoming fire. Their confusion gave Sarah precious seconds to continue her deadly work before they could organize an effective response. The third target was a fighter with a rocket-propelled grenade launcher positioned to destroy the lead vehicle in the convoy. Sarah's shot struck him center mass just as he was raising the weapon to his shoulder. The RPG round fell harmlessly to the ground as the fighter collapsed, eliminating another major threat to the friendly forces. By now, the surviving Taliban fighters were beginning to understand that a sniper was engaging them from long range. Several began scanning the hillsides, trying to locate the source of the devastating, accurate fire that was systematically destroying their ambush. Others opened fire wildly in various directions, hoping to either hit the hidden sniper or force her to reveal her position. Sarah remained calm and focused despite the chaos erupting below. Her training had prepared her for exactly this type of situation, where maintaining composure under extreme stress meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. She identified her fourth target, a Taliban commander who was trying to rally his fighters and organize a counterattack. The fourth shot silenced the commander permanently, causing further confusion among the remaining Taliban fighters. Without leadership, their defensive positions began to break down as individual fighters made their own decisions about whether to continue fighting or attempt to escape. Sarah could see some of them beginning to move away from their original positions. Her fifth target was a sniper, who had finally identified her general location and was attempting to engage her with his own rifle. Sarah could see the muzzle flash from his weapon as he fired in her direction. Though his shots were falling well short of her position, she methodically aimed and fired, eliminating the threat before he could adjust his aim and become truly dangerous. The entire engagement from Sarah's first shot to her fifth had taken exactly 83 seconds. In that time, she had eliminated 5 key Taliban fighters, completely disrupting their planned ambush and saving the lives of the Afghan soldiers in the convoy below. The remaining enemy fighters were now either dead, wounded, or fleeing the area in panic. Rodriguez and the other rangers moved in to secure the area while Sarah maintained overwatch from her elevated position. The convoy safely passed through what would have been a devastating kill zone, their crews completely unaware of how close they had come to disaster. Only the swift and accurate action of Sarah and her team had prevented what could have been a massacre. As the dust settled and the immediate danger passed, Sarah felt the familiar mixture of relief and exhaustion that followed intense combat. Her hands remained steady as she cleared her rifle and prepared to move to a new position. But internally she was processing the reality of what had just occurred. She had taken human lives, something no amount of training could fully prepare someone for. The radio brought congratulations from headquarters and requests for detailed after-action reports. Sarah's performance had been nothing short of exceptional, demonstrating the value of proper training and steady nerves under extreme pressure. Her fellow rangers looked at her with new respect, having witnessed firsthand her ability to deliver precise fire when lives hung in the balance. However, Sarah knew that this engagement was just the beginning. The Taliban would learn from this encounter and adjust their tactics accordingly. They would also now know that American snipers were operating in the area, making future missions more dangerous and complex. The enemy would be watching for her, trying to identify her patterns and find ways to counter her effectiveness. As the team prepared to move to their extraction point, Sarah carefully packed her equipment and conducted final checks of her rifle. The weapon had performed flawlessly during the engagement, but proper maintenance was essential to ensure continued reliability. She knew that her life and the lives of her teammates might depend on this rifle functioning perfectly when called upon again. The extraction went smoothly, with the team returning to their forward operating base without further incident. Sarah's actions had already become the subject of discussion among the military leadership in the region, with many expressing amazement at her precise shooting under combat conditions. Word of her performance was spreading through military channels, building her reputation as an exceptional sniper. News of Sarah's remarkable shooting performance spread quickly through the military command structure in Afghanistan. Within days of the Valley engagement, she found herself summoned to meet with Colonel James Harrison, the commanding officer of all special operations forces in the region. The colonel was known for his direct approach and had little patience for anything that did not contribute to mission success. Colonel Harrison studied Sarah carefully as she stood at attention in his temporary office at the main operating base. He had read the after-action reports from her team leader and reviewed the tactical analysis of the engagement. The precision and speed of her shooting had impressed even veteran snipers who had decades of combat experience. The colonel explained that Sarah's unit would be receiving new assignments based on her demonstrated capabilities. Intelligence reports indicated that several high-value Taliban targets were operating in the region, and conventional forces had been unable to locate or engage them effectively. These targets were responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces and Afghan civilians, making their elimination a top priority. Sarah listened intently as the colonel outlined the challenging nature of these new missions. The targets were extremely cautious, rarely staying in one location for more than a few hours and always surrounding themselves with heavily armed guards. Previous attempts to capture or eliminate them had failed, often resulting in casualties among coalition forces. The briefing included detailed intelligence about the primary target, a Taliban commander known as Ahmad Shah, who had been responsible for over 30 attacks on coalition forces in the past year. He was known to be highly intelligent and extremely paranoid, changing his patterns regularly and using multiple decoy convoys to confuse surveillance efforts. Sarah's team would be working with intelligence specialists and drone operators to track Ahmad Shah's movements and identify opportunities for engagement. The mission would require patience, as they might have to wait for days or even weeks for the right opportunity to present itself. When that moment came, there would likely be only seconds to act before the target disappeared again. The preparation for this new phase of operations was intensive and thorough. Sarah spent hours studying satellite imagery of the areas where Ahmad Shah was known to operate, memorizing terrain features and identifying potential shooting positions. She also worked with intelligence analysts to understand the target's behavioral patterns and security procedures. Physical preparation was equally important, as the new missions would require Sarah and her team to remain in concealed positions for extended periods. They practiced remaining motionless for hours at a time, learned advanced camouflage techniques, and studied methods for staying alert during long surveillance operations. Sarah's rifle received modifications to enhance its performance for these specialized missions. A new scope with enhanced magnification was installed, along with a more effective muzzle brake to reduce recoil and muzzle flash. Every component was tested and retested to ensure perfect reliability when the moment of action arrived. The first attempt to locate Ahmad Shah came 3 weeks after the initial briefing. Intelligence reports indicated that he would be meeting with other Taliban leaders in a remote village to coordinate future attacks. Sarah's team infiltrated the area under cover of darkness, establishing observation positions on surrounding ridgelines. For 2 days, Sarah and her teammates watched the village through their scopes and surveillance equipment, documenting the movements of everyone who entered or left the area. They identified several armed guards and observed suspicious activities that suggested important meetings were taking place. But Ahmad Shah himself never appeared. On the 3rd day, the team received word that their target had changed his plans and would not be coming to the village. The intelligence that had seemed so reliable proved to be either incorrect or deliberately misleading. Sarah's team extracted from the area without making contact, but the mission provided valuable experience in long-duration surveillance operations. The second attempt came a month later, when drone surveillance detected a convoy matching Ahmad Shah's known security procedures traveling through a mountain pass. Sarah's team was inserted by helicopter into the area, establishing positions along the route where the convoy was expected to travel. This time, the intelligence proved accurate, and the convoy appeared exactly when and where predicted. However, Ahmad Shah was traveling in an armored vehicle that would require specialized ammunition to penetrate effectively. Sarah's standard sniper rounds were insufficient for the task, and the team had to watch as their primary target passed safely through the area. The frustration of these near misses was beginning to affect team morale, but Sarah remained focused on the mission. She knew that hunting high-value targets required patience and persistence, and that success often came only after multiple failed attempts. Each mission provided valuable intelligence about the target's security procedures and behavioral patterns. Colonel Harrison called Sarah in for another briefing after the failed convoy intercept. He explained that new intelligence assets were being deployed to support her missions, including advanced surveillance drones and signals intelligence capabilities. The military was committed to eliminating Ahmad Shah and was willing to invest significant resources in making that happen. The colonel also informed Sarah that her exceptional performance had attracted attention from the highest levels of military command. Generals were asking about the female sniper who had eliminated 5 targets in 83 seconds. And there was discussion about featuring her story in recruitment and training materials. Sarah felt uncomfortable with the attention, preferring to focus on her missions rather than publicity. She requested that any media coverage be delayed until after her deployment ended, not wanting to compromise operational security or put her team at additional risk. The colonel agreed, understanding the importance of maintaining secrecy around active operations. Training continued between missions, with Sarah and her team working to improve their skills and develop new tactics. They practiced shooting from various positions and ranges, learned advanced stalking techniques, and studied the latest intelligence about enemy counter-sniper procedures. The Taliban had clearly learned about American sniper capabilities and were taking measures to protect their important leaders. Sarah also spent time mentoring other snipers in her unit, sharing the techniques and knowledge she had gained through her successful engagements. Her ability to remain calm under extreme pressure and deliver accurate fire at long range made her an excellent instructor for less experienced shooters. The mentoring sessions revealed that Sarah's success came not just from natural talent, but from an almost obsessive attention to detail and preparation. She studied every aspect of her equipment and environment, leaving nothing to chance when lives depended on her shooting ability. This methodical approach to the sniper craft set her apart from many other soldiers who relied primarily on raw skill. As summer turned to fall in Afghanistan, Sarah's reputation continued to grow among both American forces and their enemies. Taliban communications intercepted by intelligence units revealed that they were aware of an exceptionally skilled American sniper operating in their territory, and they were taking special precautions to protect their leadership from long-range attacks. The psychological impact of Sarah's presence was becoming almost as important as her actual shooting ability. Taliban fighters were more cautious about exposing themselves, and their leaders were spending more time in heavily fortified positions rather than moving freely around their territory. This change in behavior was limiting their operational effectiveness and providing opportunities for other coalition forces to operate more safely. The breakthrough in hunting Ahmad Shah came from an unexpected source. A Taliban fighter captured during a raid on a weapons cache revealed under interrogation that the elusive commander was planning to attend his nephew's wedding in a small village near the Pakistani border. The information seemed too convenient to be true, but intelligence analysts confirmed its authenticity through multiple sources. Sarah's team received orders to investigate the wedding as a potential opportunity to eliminate their primary target. The village was located in extremely hostile territory, surrounded by mountains that provided excellent cover for Taliban forces. Getting into position would require a dangerous insertion through areas where coalition forces rarely operated. The mission planning took 5 days, with every detail carefully considered and multiple contingency plans developed. Sarah studied satellite imagery of the village until she could navigate its streets blindfolded. She identified 3 potential shooting positions on surrounding ridgelines, each offering different advantages and escape routes. The insertion was scheduled for 3 days before the wedding, giving the team time to establish their surveillance positions and confirm the target's presence. They would travel light, carrying only essential equipment and enough supplies for a week-long mission if necessary. Sarah's rifle and ammunition received special attention, with every round individually inspected and tested. The helicopter insertion went smoothly despite flying through Taliban-controlled territory at night. The crew used advanced navigation equipment to avoid known anti-aircraft positions, flying low through mountain valleys to minimize their radar signature. Sarah and her team were deposited on a remote ridgeline 15 kilometers from the target village. The team moved carefully toward their objective, traveling only during darkness and remaining hidden during daylight hours. The terrain was rugged and challenging, with loose rocks and steep slopes that made silent movement extremely difficult. Sarah carried her rifle and equipment across her back, protecting the precision instrument from damage during the arduous trek. On the second night, they reached their primary observation position overlooking the target village. Sarah established her shooting position in a natural rock formation that provided excellent concealment while offering clear fields of fire toward the wedding venue. The distance to the target building was measured at 247 meters, well within her effective range but requiring precise calculations for environmental factors. The wedding preparations were visible through Sarah's scope during the following day. Women in colorful dresses moved between buildings, carrying food and decorations for the celebration. Children played in the streets while men gathered in small groups, many of them carrying weapons in the casual manner common to the region. Sarah's spotter, Corporal David Kim, used high-powered binoculars to identify individuals entering and leaving the village. They photographed every person they could observe clearly, transmitting the images back to intelligence analysts who compared them with known Taliban fighters and leaders. The process was slow but thorough, building a complete picture of who was attending the wedding. On the morning of the wedding, Sarah and Kim observed increased security around the village. Armed guards appeared at strategic positions, and several men with military-style equipment conducted what appeared to be security sweeps of the surrounding area. These precautions suggested that someone important was indeed planning to attend the celebration. The confirmation came at midday, when a convoy of vehicles approached the village from the direction of the Pakistani border. Sarah watched through her scope as the convoy stopped and several men emerged from the lead vehicle. One of them matched the description and photographs of Ahmad Shah, confirming that their primary target was now within range. Sarah began her final preparations for the shot, checking wind conditions and verifying the range to target. The environmental factors were challenging, with variable winds caused by the mountain terrain and thermal currents from the heated rocks. She would need to time her shot carefully to account for these conditions. Ahmad Shah moved between buildings throughout the afternoon, never remaining in one location long enough for Sarah to establish a clear shot. His security team was professional and alert, constantly scanning for threats and maintaining protective formations around their leader. Taking the shot would require patience and perfect timing. The opportunity came during the evening celebration when Ahmad Shah emerged from the main wedding hall to speak with other guests in the courtyard. For a brief moment, he stood in an open area where Sarah had a clear line of sight. The range was extreme and the lighting conditions were far from ideal, but this might be their only chance. Sarah controlled her breathing and settled into her shooting position. Through her scope, she could see Ahmad Shah clearly, surrounded by wedding guests and security personnel. The shot would need to be perfect to avoid hitting innocent civilians who were celebrating nearby. Just as Sarah was applying pressure to the trigger, Ahmad Shah moved behind a group of other men, blocking her shot. She released the pressure and waited, knowing that rushing the shot would likely result in missing the target or hitting innocent people. Professional snipers understood that patience was often more important than shooting ability. Ahmad Shah appeared again several minutes later, but this time he was standing close to several children who were playing near the courtyard. Sarah had a clear shot at her target, but the risk of hitting innocent civilians was too high. She made the difficult decision to hold her fire, knowing that another opportunity might not come. Throughout the evening, Sarah had several more chances to engage the target, but each time civilian bystanders or inadequate lighting prevented her from taking the shot safely. The wedding celebration continued late into the night, with Ahmad Shah remaining among large groups of people where accurate shooting was impossible. As dawn approached, Sarah realized that the mission was likely to fail. Ahmad Shah and his security team were showing signs of preparing to leave the village, and once he departed, it might be months before another opportunity presented itself. The frustration was intense, but Sarah remained professional and focused on her responsibilities. The end came suddenly when Ahmad Shah's convoy assembled in the pre-dawn darkness. Sarah watched through her scope as her target entered an armored vehicle surrounded by guards. Within minutes, the convoy was moving away from the village, disappearing into the mountains where pursuit would be impossible. Sarah and her team remained in position for another day to ensure they had not been detected, then began their extraction from the area. The mission had failed to eliminate its primary target, but valuable intelligence had been gathered about Ahmad Shah's security procedures. and the extent of his local support network. The helicopter extraction was completed without incident, bringing Sarah and her team back to their forward operating base. The debriefing with Colonel Harrison was thorough but supportive, with the colonel emphasizing that missions like this often required multiple attempts before achieving success. Sarah felt the disappointment of the failed mission deeply, knowing that Ahmad Shah would continue to plan attacks against coalition forces and Afghan civilians. However, she also understood that her decision to hold fire when civilians were at risk had been correct, even though it meant letting a high-value target escape. The intelligence gathered during the mission proved valuable for future operations. Analysts were able to identify several previously unknown Taliban fighters and map the support network that helped Ahmad Shah operate in the region. This information would be used to plan future missions and disrupt the Taliban's organizational structure. Sarah's performance during the mission, particularly her discipline in refusing dangerous shots, earned praise from her superiors. The ability to make difficult decisions under extreme pressure was recognized as one of the most important qualities in a professional sniper, and Sarah had demonstrated that quality under challenging circumstances. The failed wedding mission had unexpected consequences for Sarah's career. Word of her professional restraint and tactical discipline reached senior military leaders who were increasingly concerned about civilian casualties in Afghanistan. Her ability to maintain fire discipline under extreme pressure made her an ideal candidate for the military's most sensitive operations. 3 weeks after returning from the wedding surveillance, Sarah received orders to report to a classified briefing at Bagram Airfield. The meeting location and security procedures indicated that she was being considered for assignment to a special access program, the type of highly classified operation that most soldiers never learned existed. Colonel Harrison accompanied Sarah to the briefing, which was conducted in a secure facility surrounded by multiple layers of security. The briefing officer was a civilian whose credentials suggested intelligence community background, and the other attendees included senior military officers from various special operations units. The briefing revealed that Sarah was being considered for assignment to a joint task force responsible for eliminating high-value targets. Throughout Afghanistan and Pakistan, the unit operated under different rules of engagement than conventional forces, with authority to conduct cross-border operations and engage targets without prior approval from standard command structures. Sarah learned that her reputation for precise shooting and sound judgment had made her a candidate for the task force's most challenging missions. These operations often required eliminating targets in urban environments where civilian casualties would cause significant political problems for the United States and its allies. The selection process for the task force was rigorous and comprehensive. Sarah underwent psychological evaluation, additional background investigation, and specialized training in urban sniper techniques. She learned to operate in environments where the margin for error was essentially zero, where a single misplaced shot could compromise international relations. Advanced training included shooting from concealed positions inside buildings, engaging targets through windows and doorways, and operating in environments with numerous potential witnesses. Sarah practiced these skills using sophisticated simulators that recreated realistic urban scenarios with moving civilian populations. The technical aspects of urban sniping required different equipment and techniques than the rural operations Sarah had previously conducted. Her rifle received additional modifications, including a specialized suppressor system designed to minimize sound signature and muzzle flash. Every component was selected for maximum accuracy and reliability in challenging conditions. Sarah's first mission with the task force came 6 weeks after her selection. Intelligence indicated that a Taliban bomb maker, responsible for numerous attacks on coalition forces, was hiding in a residential area of Kabul. The target had been tracked to a specific building, but his exact location within the structure remained unknown. The mission required Sarah to establish a shooting position in an abandoned building across the street from the target location. She would have to remain in position for up to 72 hours, waiting for the bomb maker to expose himself long enough for accurate engagement. The shot would need to be taken in an urban environment with civilians constantly moving through the area. Sarah and her spotter, now Staff Sergeant Kim, who had been promoted after their successful partnership, infiltrated Kabul using false identification documents. They posed as relief workers with a humanitarian organization, allowing them to move through the city without attracting attention from local security forces or Taliban sympathizers. The shooting position was established in a partially destroyed building that provided excellent concealment while offering clear views of the target location. Sarah spent hours studying the target building through her scope, memorizing window positions and identifying potential shooting lanes. The urban environment created unique challenges with reflective surfaces and unpredictable wind patterns. The waiting began immediately after establishing the position. Sarah and Kim took turns maintaining surveillance while the other rested, knowing that the target could appear at any moment. They consumed minimal food and water to avoid compromising their position with unnecessary movement or waste disposal. On the second day of surveillance, Sarah observed a man matching the bomb maker's description appear briefly at a third-floor window. The sighting lasted only seconds and occurred at long range, making positive identification impossible. However, the location matched intelligence reports about where the target was believed to be hiding. Confirmed sighting came on the morning of the third day when the bomb maker appeared at the same window for an extended period. Sarah was able to observe him clearly through her scope and confirm his identity using facial recognition photographs provided by intelligence sources. The target was standing in a well-lit area where accurate shooting would be possible. Sarah began her shooting sequence, checking environmental conditions and verifying the range to target. The distance was 387 meters, well within her capabilities but requiring precise calculation due to the urban environment's effect on bullet trajectory. Wind conditions were minimal, but thermal effects from surrounding buildings could influence the bullet's path. The shot opportunity lasted approximately 45 seconds before the bomb maker moved away from the window. Sarah had ample time to prepare and execute the shot, but she noticed civilians walking on the street below the target building. A missed shot or over-penetration could potentially harm innocent people in the area. Sarah made the decision to take the shot when the civilian foot traffic cleared the area below the target window. Her calculations indicated that the bullet would impact the target and stop within the building structure, minimizing risk to anyone outside the immediate target area. The shot was fired with the smooth trigger control that had become second nature through years of training. The bullet struck the bomb maker in the upper chest, eliminating him instantly. Sarah immediately began preparing to vacate the shooting position, knowing that local security forces would respond quickly to investigate the shooting. The suppressor had minimized the sound signature, but trained personnel might still be able to locate the general area from which the shot originated. The extraction from Kabul was completed without incident, with Sarah and Kim reaching their extraction point according to the predetermined timeline. Local news reports confirmed the death of the bomb maker, but there was no indication that authorities had identified the source of the shooting or suspected American involvement. The mission was considered a complete success by task force leadership. The elimination of the bomb maker disrupted a major Taliban bombing network and likely prevented numerous future attacks on coalition forces and Afghan civilians. Sarah's precise shooting and professional execution had achieved strategic objectives without creating political complications. Sarah's success with the task force led to additional high-profile assignments targeting Taliban leadership throughout the region. Each mission presented unique challenges requiring different tactical approaches and specialized equipment. Her reputation within the special operations community continued to grow as she successfully completed increasingly difficult assignments. The psychological impact of conducting these precision elimination missions was significant, but manageable for Sarah. She understood the strategic importance of her work and the lives that were saved by removing dangerous targets from operation. The support structure within the task force included counseling resources and peer support networks to help operators deal with the stress of their responsibilities. Between missions, Sarah continued training and studying to improve her capabilities. She learned new techniques for urban operations, practiced with different weapon systems, and studied intelligence reports to better understand the enemy network she was targeting. Continuous improvement was essential for maintaining effectiveness in such demanding operations. The task force's success rate was extremely high, with Sarah participating in the elimination of over 20 high-value targets during her assignment. Each successful mission disrupted Taliban operations, and contributed to improve security for coalition forces and Afghan civilians throughout the region. As her deployment neared its end, Sarah reflected on the significant evolution her military career had undergone. She had started as a conventional infantry soldier and developed into one of the military's most skilled and trusted precision shooting specialists. Her unique combination of technical skill and sound judgment had made her invaluable for the most sensitive operations. Sarah's final mission with the task force would prove to be the most challenging and controversial of her entire deployment. Intelligence sources had located Mullah Omar Rashid, a Taliban leader directly responsible for coordinating attacks that had killed dozens of coalition soldiers. The target was hiding in a compound near the Afghan-Pakistan border, an area where American forces had limited operational authority. The compound was heavily fortified and surrounded by civilian buildings, making conventional military assault extremely difficult without significant collateral damage. Drone strikes had been considered but rejected due to the high probability of civilian casualties in the densely populated area. Sarah's precision shooting abilities made her the only viable option for eliminating the target without harming innocent people. The mission briefing revealed the political sensitivities surrounding the operation. The compound was technically located in Pakistani territory, making the mission a cross-border operation that could create serious diplomatic complications if discovered. The operation had been approved at the highest levels of government, but absolute secrecy was essential to prevent international incidents. Sarah studied the intelligence package for hours, memorizing every detail about the target compound and surrounding area. Satellite imagery showed that Mullah Omar Rashid followed predictable patterns, appearing on a specific balcony each morning to conduct prayers and meetings with subordinates. This routine provided the best opportunity for engagement. The shooting position would be established on a hillside approximately 1,000 meters from the target compound. The distance was extreme but manageable, given Sarah's demonstrated capabilities and the specialized equipment available for the mission. Weather conditions in the area were generally favorable, with minimal wind and clear visibility during morning hours. Sarah and Kim infiltrated the border region using unmarked civilian vehicles and false documentation. They posed as geological survey workers conducting mineral exploration in the mountainous terrain, a cover story that explained their presence in the remote area and their technical equipment. Local contacts provided by intelligence agencies assisted with transportation and logistics. The approach to the shooting position required a dangerous night march through terrain, controlled by Taliban and tribal militias. Sarah and Kim moved carefully through valleys and along ridgelines, avoiding known patrol routes and observation posts. Their equipment was distributed between multiple packs to reduce individual load and minimize noise during movement. The shooting position was established in a natural cave formation that provided excellent concealment while offering unobstructed views of the target compound. Sarah spent several hours preparing the position, ensuring that her rifle was perfectly stable and that environmental factors were properly calculated. The range to target was confirmed at 1,023 meters using laser range-finding equipment. Surveillance of the compound began immediately after establishing the position. Sarah observed the daily routines of everyone living and working in the area, identifying Mullah Omar Rashid and documenting his behavioral patterns. The target appeared to be extremely security conscious, varying his timing and using multiple decoys to confuse potential surveillance. The first shooting opportunity came on the second morning when Mullah Omar Rashid appeared on the balcony for his daily prayers. Sarah had a clear shot and favorable environmental conditions, but the target was surrounded by several other individuals whose identities could not be confirmed. Taking the shot might eliminate innocent people along with the primary target. Sarah held her fire and continued surveillance, waiting for an opportunity when the target would be isolated from other individuals. Professional snipers understood that patience was often more important than shooting ability, especially in missions where collateral damage could have serious political consequences. The wait continued through the morning as various people moved through the compound. The second opportunity came that afternoon when Mullah Omar Rashid met with a small group of subordinates on the balcony. Sarah was able to identify several of the individuals as known Taliban fighters through comparison with intelligence photographs. Eliminating the entire group would significantly disrupt Taliban operations in the region. However, Sarah's rules of engagement specified that she was authorized to eliminate only the primary target, unless directly threatened by other individuals. The other men on the balcony had not been specifically designated for elimination, creating a complex tactical and legal situation that required careful consideration. Sarah made the decision to wait for the primary target to separate from the group, maintaining her position while monitoring radio communications for any changes to her mission parameters. The discipline required to hold fire when presented with multiple, high-value targets demonstrated the professional restraint that had made her valuable for sensitive operations. The perfect opportunity finally presented itself on the third morning when Mullah Omar Rashid appeared, alone on the balcony for an extended period. Sarah confirmed the target's identity through her scope and verified that no other individuals were in the potential impact area. Environmental conditions were ideal, with minimal wind and excellent visibility. Sarah began her final shooting sequence, controlling her breathing and settling into the precise shooting position she had practiced thousands of times. Through her scope, she could see the target clearly as he conducted his morning prayers, completely unaware that death was watching him from over a kilometer away. The shot broke cleanly, and Sarah immediately observed the impact through her scope. Mullah Omar Rashid collapsed instantly, confirming that the mission had been successful. Sarah began preparing for immediate extraction, knowing that the compound's security forces would respond quickly to investigate the shooting. The extraction was completed within 30 minutes of the shot, with Sarah and Kim moving rapidly through predetermined escape routes toward their vehicle pickup point. Local radio communications indicated significant confusion and alarm at the compound, but there was no immediate pursuit or indication that the shooting position had been identified. The return journey to coalition territory was tense, but successful, with Sarah and Kim reaching safety without encountering hostile forces. The elimination of Mullah Omar Rashid was confirmed through multiple intelligence sources, validating the success of the extremely challenging cross-border mission. The political ramifications of the operation were carefully managed through diplomatic channels, with the Pakistani government receiving private briefings about the mission's objectives and results. The elimination of such a high-value target was considered worth the risks associated with cross-border operations. Sarah's performance on this final mission cemented her reputation as one of the military's most skilled and reliable precision shooters. Her ability to operate effectively in politically sensitive environments while maintaining the highest standards of professional conduct made her invaluable for the most challenging operations. As her deployment neared its end, Sarah began preparing for the transition back to conventional military duties. The specialized skills and experience she had gained with the task force would be valuable for training other snipers and developing new tactics for precision shooting operations. The psychological transition from conducting high-stakes elimination missions to routine military duties would require careful management and support. Sarah had performed exceptionally under extreme pressure, but the intensity of her recent operations had taken a toll that would need to be addressed through proper debriefing and counseling support.